Alrighty, Deltarune, Chapter 5, it's here, it's out, there's flower people, multiple of them are hot, and this one keeps trying to fucking blow himself up, so yeah, it's good, this chapter's good. However, there's actually a lot new here, and a lot to talk about. So let's go over what this chapter does, what it does differently, and how it stacks up to Deltarune's other 4 chapters. It's Chapter 5, it's a review, you know how reviews work. Starting now. Aight, fantastic. Getting straight into this review, let's start with the most immediately apparent thing about Chapter 5, which is, it is the single biggest and most extravagant chapter to date. And this can be seen instantly in its map, its music, its gameplay, even down to the graphics of its backgrounds and the little new animations you get to see in its character models. Like, look at all of this. Ain't this nice? In terms of graphical finesse, it's a direct upgrade from chapters 3 and 4, which were themselves already upgrades from 1 and 2. So, if you're in the Boston/New Hampshire area and your power bills have recently been jacked up, causing you and your family financial and psychological hardship, this game's increasing development budget could be the reason. It's the best looking and sounding chapter so far, and I don't think that's controversial to say. Going further, in terms of pure size, Chapter 5 also easily boasts the largest map of all 5 chapters, a feat it pulls off incredibly well, as I think this is probably my favourite paced chapter, you know, just in terms of how you progress from one area to the next. And the reason I say that is I really like how each individual area of this chapter feels wholly distinct in terms of its aesthetics, but also feels really natural to progress in terms of just flowing nicely from one area to another. I don't really have a well-articulated reason as to why I feel this way, but come on. You climb a mountain, the sunset's beautiful, I don't fucking know, maybe my life's just been an uphill battle. Now, granted, there are a couple of nitpicks I have with this, notably the fields area could have been shortened by just a wee bit, drags maybe 15 minutes longer than it should have. And I also would have liked the ability to backtrack earlier in the chapter, since only getting access to the warp doors at the very end of it can make the previous areas feel a little confusing, since you haven't had access to them for a couple of hours. Still though, I'm loving the map design, loving the progression, and it's nice that the chapter gives you some excellent reasons to backtrack, as collecting these pink coins gives access to some nice banging items. So overall, I'd say Chapter 5 is my favourite looking chapter, my favourite paced chapter, and my second favourite Dark World period, just behind Chapter 4. Okay, let's zoom out a little. Because besides the obvious graphical upgrades, the new gameplay, and what you've probably noticed/heard about online is that Chapter 5 acts as a stark contrast to the very ominous, lore-fueled fever dreams that were Chapters 3 and 4. Self-described by Toby Fox as the last fun chapter, whatever the hell that means, Toby, I am so scared. What we have here is a gameplay and character-centered experience that feels less concerned with expanding the size and scope of Deltarune's narrative, and more so with being Chapter 5 in a multi-chapter game. And in practice, what this looks like is a chapter that doesn't move the story near as far as previous chapters, but instead uses that extra time and space to add a larger cast of side characters, more mini-bosses, and a heightened focus on new gameplay elements. And whether or not you think that trade-off is worth it will probably determine in large part how much you get out of this chapter. And because it's my video and I hold the talking pillow, not you, I'm of the opinion that this approach fits Deltarune quite nicely, with a couple of criticisms that I'll circle back to later. But now is not later, and what I want to discuss now is what this approach allows Deltarune Chapter 5 to do well, which is have good fucking characters. Yeah.
Red Robin. Yum.
Okay, let's not mince words here. The single strongest aspect of Deltarune Chapter 5 is how it handles its characters, how it handles the development of its existing characters, and how the nature of its more insulated story allows for the strongest crop of side characters so far. And let's just start with these grassy, beautiful bastards because, my days, I just love how this chapter handles them. So as you probably know if you've tolerated the cumulative psychic damage of my editing thus far, in Chapter 5 your main ops are these 7 characters, each of them individual and memorable characters created from the dreams of the 7 flowers in Asgore's shop. This one dreamed of being a ballerina, so it is one. This one's a chef, this one a maniac, and so on. The main crux here being that in universe, these 7 can only exist in one specific dark world and only for a single day. And it's this inherent impermanence that fundamentally means everything. It means that because these 7 can't exist outside of Chapter 5, they don't need to intersect with the rest of Deltarune later, and as such can just get ample time to be individual, hilarious, and tragic characters without needing to tie in with everything else later down the line. Because they can't come back, they can simply just focus on being unique. And each of them are. They're extremely distinct personality-wise, and I just love how they have their own relationships with each other that are reflected in these little interactions and the multiple mini boss fights you get with them where they team up to stop you and it's really good. And it's this impermanence that also ties into their motivation as well, as they're not just simply battling you for Asgore's sake, but to keep their own limited dream alive. They inherently know that they're not gonna last and they'll likely lose and die and get punked on and have their financial assets liquefied right in front of their shareholders, but they're just trying to make the most of the time they have and the most of the dream that they can share together. And have you noticed I like these characters so far? And who could forget about Flowery? He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. Seriously, what is there to say about this guy? He's hilarious, his voice lines are going to be stuck in my head for weeks and playing at my funeral after my inevitable industrial machine-related death, and every single positive thing that I mentioned about the flower people motives apply to him. And to be honest, I'm gonna go as far as to call him my favorite Toby Fox protagonist, period. Also, this pink asshole is difficult as hell, but I love them all the same. But I ain't spending any more time on it. Because it's not like the existing cast of main characters have nothing to do here either. As much like in previous chapters, 5 here is stuffed with all of these little moments and interactions that really develop these pixelated critters' arcs quite nicely. As Susie here gets these amazing moments of tenderness and gets to show off her softer side on both sides of the festival. Rousey here gets a much deserved spotlight, showing more aggression, frustration, and desperation to his circumstances while also developing his mystery, and Chris is f***ing green now. Now my only complaint here is I do wish we got a little bit more of Asgore, considering how prominent he is to the story of this chapter, as he gets these incredible moments of emotion and really gets to show a new darkness to his character, but we really don't learn that much more about him than we did in previous chapters, and it's one of a couple of examples where this chapter's writing is sometimes a little too vague for my liking. More on that later. Yeah! All things considered though, when it comes to characters, this is a strong chapter. Arguably the strongest. It's either this or chapter 2, so yeah, love it. Oh, by the way, I'm editing this in post, but Chris does actually get some really cool character moments this chapter. It's just a little bit harder to pass due to the whole not speaking thing. Pause here for more details. Anyway. Okay, gameplay. Starting off hot, as I don't really care about opening my paragraphs neatly anymore. As you've probably noticed, this chapter's major gameplay gimmick is introducing 2D platforming to the mix. And honestly, it's cool. That's cool. You turn 2D, jump, slash, do it a thing. It's not like amazing, but it's got its time to shine, it's not overly clunky, and it does have some cool encounters. Plus I like how it's used to progress the map from one area to another. It's not too intrusive, fun when it's there, and fine when it's not. Nothing more, nothing less. But let me tell you what I really want to talk about. Challenge. Yeah. Yes, difficulty-wise, this is easily Deltarune's hardest chapter. When you're playing this, you can't be inattentive here, twiddling your nutsack lowballing suckers on Facebook Marketplace for off-brand Jordans. You gotta be on the ball, okay? Shit's a bit more complex this time round. Standard enemies have more elaborate bullet patterns, mini-bosses are plentiful, and the later fights of this chapter easily rank among the hardest of any Toby Fox game to this point. And what's great about this is not only is this extra challenge just flat out fun, it's fun because it's hard, I don't know what to tell you. But this increase in difficulty also feels really natural, as Chapter 5 spaces its major fights in a way that means difficulty ramps up quite comfortably as the chapter progresses. Also, small thing, but I do like that when you reach the castle foyer you can choose which pair of mini-bosses you get to fight first. That's just nice. And while I'm on that, bosses. These are great, holy shit. Because yes, while not as diverse thematically and aesthetically as previous chapters, what I love about the bosses this time is how each encounter has a slightly different twist gameplay-wise based on the personality of which flower you're fighting, whether it be Aqua just being knife chaos, Green introducing a healing gimmick, or the absolutely hilarious trial and evidence fight. Because these aren't just well-crafted, well-balanced fights, but they're also visual extensions of the personalities of these extremely well-written characters. And as such, each fight feels like an extension of this chapter's narrative, rather than just another boss to beat. And no fight illustrates this better than Flowery. Let me geek out for a second. This is peak. Peak Deltarune, peak everything. If you wanted a concise display of everything that makes Chapter 5 great and Toby Fox a compelling developer, you'll find it in this fight. The set piece, spectacular. Look at this. The lore going into the fight, phenomenal. Difficulty? Surprisingly punishing, but no way unfair. And I just love how each phase of this fight is Flowery using everything he loves and cares about to hold us back, and how each of the flowers we've gotten to know changes his attack patterns as Flowery fights alongside his friends. And this music, are you listening to this, man? This shit entered the Billboard charts, dog. Are we being for real? All culminating in this magic moment. Best fight in the game. What the hell, man? Okay, now that I've sufficiently glazed this chapter, let's be critical for a bit. And so we reached the great issue of sorts people seem to have with this chapter. The great debate, so to speak. And that being, this chapter's story progression. Or more succinctly, this chapter's story progression occasionally coming across as just that. And this isn't an entirely unfounded critique, because especially compared to chapters 3 and 4, it's true. Lore-wise and story-wise, objectively less is set up, and less progression narratively occurs. Dessa's disappearance is still being alluded to in super opaque terms, previous plot points are kept mostly in the dark, and it really seems the aim here was to set everything up for a big chapter 6. Lol, Toby actually ended up patching the game on a random weekday to lore dump about friends, so that happened. And there is merit to being concerned that perhaps there isn't going to be enough room in 2 chapters to stick the landing, or that the totality of the narrative feels messier than it did before this chapter dropped. And I won't deny that this does occasionally hamper the overall experience, and makes me wish for more context to make its bigger story moments just hit a little bit harder and feel a little bit more satisfying. However, in saying all of that, the narrative, while a little sheepish to tell us too much, still does reach a nice conclusion in setting up a big next chapter, and I do think it's a little too hasty to judge the full progression of the narrative considering we don't even know how much game we actually have left. For all we know, once the full game's out, this chapter might actually act as a necessary narrative breather. Look, all I'm saying is I just don't think it's worth catastrophizing and acting like the entire game is ruined just because Gaster didn't pop out at the end to lore dump about cats for 15 minutes and personally dump your IP address onto the Deltarune Twitter account. It's definitely an issue, but I think we're losing our minds a little preemptively, okay? And really, with that in mind, this chapter for the 95% is another home run. I think I'm gonna rank it 4.75 John Rambuses out of 5. So, wrapping up, here's my chapter rankings. Here's my recent weighted dip PR. I finally got 65 kgs for 1 and 50 for 4, and I think that just about covers everything. Right? Okay, apologies, excuse the mess right now. This is a very impromptu segment. I'm literally on my way to the gym, hence why I'm dressed like a f***ing overstuffed olive right now. But when I first started making this video, Truthfully, I wasn't actually too sure if I was going to make a segment on the weird route or not. And the reason being, that shit genuinely upset me, man. And several weeks later, I'm honestly still at a loss for words, but what I'll say is, I think it's brilliant. I think it's better than the No Mercy route of Undertale, which it felt cold and cruel for a reason, but this definitely hits closer to home because just how well Noelle is written as a character. As in, on the regular route, everything you're doing, she's kind of making these parallels about how, you know, her friends have changed her life for the better, how she used to just want to run away, and how she's found kind of purpose and comfort and safety in the actions of the main cast. But in the weird route, it's almost like you've deprived this person who is so close to being able to finally escape depression, escape the slump that they've been in, and you've just deprived them of that, and at the end they thank you for it because they just genuinely don't know what they've been missing, and they were a person that were kind of, well, it's a f***ing deer, I don't know why I'm saying person, but it's a character that has so much trouble and trauma and darkness in their life, and the actions of the main cast is genuinely what's going to be able to make them so much better and recognize their own worth and their own place in the world, but you've kind of deprived them of that, and that is a far more horrifying reality than whatever happened in Undertale. I also just ran out of time to edit the segment, so that's something. Anyway.